Before we get into the video, a couple of safety things we must go through. So first thing, unplug the machine from the power supply. Isolate that plug so nobody else can plug it back in while you're working on it. Wear some safety gloves because inside the machine is some very sharp edges. And lastly, if you're not confident doing this, contact your local repair agent to help you out. In this video, we're going to show you how to remove and replace a heating element from inside a tumble dryer. Now, heating elements are common to fail on dryers and they are generally quite easy to change. So this video should help you with any make or model you've got because they're all largely found in the same place. They're always on the back of the dryer, which is what we're looking at now. And how you access them does tend to be the same regardless of what the brand is. Now, obviously the heater is what supplies the heat inside the machine to dry your clothes. So if you've got a scenario where your dryer is not producing any heat, then there's a very, very high probability that the heater itself has failed and will need changing. And like I said, it's quite an easy job to do, so it's definitely within your skill set and ability to have a go yourself. Now, as I said, it's always found on the back of the machine. There'll always be some form of metal cover over it. So the first thing we need to do is remove this cover. Now, there's quite a few screws, which is quite common across different brands. They do tend to use more screws than is absolutely necessary. So you might find it beneficial to use some form of electric screwdriver. It will definitely speed up the repair for you. So first stage, I'm going to get rid of this and then you better see the heater, which is literally just behind here in this general area there. So let me get rid of that cover and we'll come back to you. So now we've got this metal cover off, we can see the heating element quite clearly here. Now there's a couple of things that are worth pointing out on the heater, because this is the heater itself. You tend to have a temperature sensor there, nothing really can do with that. But you do occasionally have what we call a resettable fuse or thermal fuse. So if you've got a scenario where your dryer is not producing any heat and you remove this access cover, if it happens to have one of them, it's worth just pushing that button. And if you get quite a positive click sound and you can actually feel some resistance as you push it at the same time, then it means that that had tripped out. And under that circumstance, when that trips, it kills the power to the heater. Now, that can be caused by a fault with the heating element, in which case you would need to change this anyway. But it can also be created by the user in a couple of different scenarios. So the first one that we're all guilty of is when we've got a load in drying, we keep opening the door to check the clothes and then shutting the door. And doing that repeatedly over a cycle can make that fail prematurely. In which case just resetting it would get your heater working again. The other way would be if you don't let the cycle complete itself, because the last 10-15 minutes are a cool down period which the heater and this needs to cool down properly, and if you haven't allowed it to do that, that in itself can make that trip. So it's always worth pressing that button just to see. If it's down to user error, shall we say, then that should get your heater going again. If it resets and the heat comes back on and then it goes off fairly quickly, then quite simply you're going to need to change your heater, which is what this video is all about. We're going to show you how to remove this and replace it. There's one other electrical fault you can get with these, and again, the only cure for it is to change the heater. And that would be if your dryer is tripping your electrics or taking out the fuse in your house. It can be a few other things on the dryer, but 9 times out of 10 it's going to be the heating element that causes that. And simply replacing the heater would fix that problem as well. So let's carry on with the video. We're going to remove this. There's 3 screws that hold it in place, there, there and there. And if you follow the wires, they actually go inside the cabinet here. We're going to need to remove the lid from the appliance to get at the wires that are in the top here. Now, as is the case with washers, dishwashers, dryers, the lid is nearly always attached in the same manner regardless of what brand it is, and there's at least 2 screws, one on either side. In this case there's up to 3 because there's one in the middle as well, but when you take them out, the lid should just slide backwards a little bit and then lift away. So next stage is get the lid out of the way. That's done. Now before I disconnect the heater, I'm going to actually take the wires, disconnect the wires from inside. So there's two wires, one for the heater and the fuse, and then that sensor's got a separate wire. Now it goes into a block behind here, which I can't show you at the moment. When I take it off, I can show you that then. And that block is just held in with this one screw. But when you take the lid off and you look inside and follow the wires up, it should be very obvious where they're going. Right, and this is the block that it fits into. So the two plugs for the heater both go in here, and then it's screwed to the back of the cabinet from inside. So that is the wires free. I'm just going to pull them through the back cabinet now. That's your heater fully disconnected. So all we need to do now is take out the screws. So the heater now should just lift away from the back panel. So this is your heater assembler. Now it's a complete unit, so whether that fails or the heater, you generally on most brands can't change these as separate parts. So you tend to order a heater assembly and it comes as one complete unit. Which might not seem brilliant from a cost point of view, but it does tend to make the repair easier, because regardless of what's wrong with it, all you can really do is change the whole unit. So if the heater was faulty for whatever reason, all we need to do is get the complete heater and reattach it. So what's fairly common on a lot of brands is there's a little tab on either side here, might be a bit hard to see on camera, that fit into these little holes there. So it tends to go in and then just drop down ever so slightly. And it kind of holds itself in place while you get the screws in now. So that's the heater secured in place. Just need to feed the wires back through the hole in the cabinet. Good little tip for you. We talked in the beginning of the video about wearing safety gloves. I'd just like to point out that the edges inside a tumble dryer are quite sharp as well. So if you're not careful, it will be easy to cut yourself if you didn't have any gloves on. Alright, so that's the wires back through the cabinet. All we need to do is connect it back up to the block. Right, so that's the cables, the plugs all secured back on the inside of the machine. So if we want, we can put the lid back on. All we need to do now is refit the access cover for the back, which is just a case of offering it back up and screwing it back in. Right, that's the last screw. We've now got the cover back on, so we have successfully removed and replaced the heating element. So regardless of what type of heating fault you've got, whether it's just stopped producing heat or whether it is actually tripping your electrics, then we should now have a working dryer. So that is how you remove and replace a heating element.